Why, hello there, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. My name is Mr. Dogbo333, and welcome back to Hearts of Iron 4, the New Order as Yunnan Province. Now, last time we were here, we started working against the CCP, and we also started working on rebuilding the Burma Road. We just finished the decision to get that kicked off soon enough. Well, we'll see how well that all ends up going. And in the meanwhile, let's work on establishing rural area networks. We hope to put a firm stop to the Chinese Communist Party's activities. We must do whatever we can to halt their growth. While our efforts to combat these threats has been increasingly effective, it's nowhere near fast enough to properly combat the unrestrained growth of the CCP's forces. While we may not be able to halt the growth of resistance by actively combating it, we may still be able to cut off the snake at its head. Through establishing connection within the rural communities in which the CPC flourishes in, we will be able to infiltrate these insurgents and cause chaos from within their ranks. While far from a permanent solution, will also allow us to identify future attacks against government assets. It will take time, but we are certainly cutting down these communists. It's far from the end, but we are beginning to see the light at the end of the tunnel. I think that means we're dying. I don't think that's a good metaphor here, I'll be honest. Let's focus on... So go figure, we did all the... Oh, actually, I haven't done this one. Oh, there goes Wilhelmina. We currently have negative military spending right now. That's very funny to me. We have... the military is giving us money right now, actually. Look at that. Swap over the new generation of rifles. And look at that, our credit rating has improved. I think that's going to help a little bit on the interest. Oh yeah, we also have negative growth. That's not great. But what are you gonna do? When he came to, there he was again, a field above, the smell of gunpowder and smoke. He felt his face warm and whole. His eyes were functioning. His ears were ringing, but they were all right. He pulled his hands from his face and looked at them, blackened by ash, caked by dust. He blinked. It was alive. Chiang was again in that city, the city of his father's last sins. Ahead, screams in Japanese, "Banzai!" Then came the susurrating reply, "Banzai!" It crashed through the narrow streets of Chongqing, bloodied by warfare like waves frothing against the coast. Up above, columns of smoke upheld in the azure sky. He squinted at the sun and let its rays bore a hole in his eyes, black as an eclipse. They took him to the outskirts of the city, past the ruined walls and breached gates caked by drying blood. A shiver went through him. Above the gatehouses, the Japanese had hung the bodies of the officers that had resisted to the bitter end. Among them was his father. Tears streaked his face and anger raked his heart. No. He wanted to scream. No. Next to him was the alleged body of Mao. The resemblance was there, the receding hairline and the Hunnanese tones of the skin. Pale now as death cast its pall over the body. It didn't matter, he supposed. Alive, Mao was a most tenacious adversary. In death, strung up next to his father, he was a hero like none other. Nausea struck him, and he had to sit down. He perched above the rock, panting. A Japanese officer sidled up to him and offered an apologetic smile. What an end, eh? The Mandarin was laced with an accent. It carried notes of the Manzais of before. He gave the officer a look. Pursing his lips, he thought of words. He thought of responses. In the end, he remained silent. In the distance, a bomb exploded, the cheering of soldiers. Above it all, Above it all, there was a demonic rattling in the sky and the walls. Everywhere. General! General! The sound rattled his prison cell. Message for you. He left a sheaf of paper on the floor and walked away. Jiang Weizhou rose up and read the letter. Imprisoning the body does not incarcerate the soul. Damn. Well, look at that. We got a credit rating. It's all coming together. Just ignore the fact that we have negative GDP growth right now. Let's contact Vietnam. A nation in a situation considerably similar to our own. Vietnam has been entrenched in a partisan war, notably similar to our own. I thought we just repeated that. Okay. Cool. Both our nations have been caught grinding down on these communist partisans, and it's believed that many of our shared problems may be sharing leaders as well. While Bao Dai has been caught in this war just as we have and seems to be working with similar proficiency, we would be wasting an opportunity to share information and fighting tactics. In this war against the CCP, we will need as much help as we can get. It goes without saying that this insurgency is weakening our government's hold over rural regions, and we may soon have no choice but to end this war, and fast. Well, there we go. Well, there's a specter haunting Latin America. Well, we can't really research much more on the kits. We're kind of reaching a hard cap just with our societal development and what we can and cannot access. Our poverty is also skyrocketing. Well, we have negative GDP growth. That's certainly not helping. Alright, I'm going to see if I can up this and get... No, that does nothing. That does quite literally nothing. We're just gonna have to suffer. Almost 20 years since Song Zhiliang had set foot in China, nearly 2 decades since the foreign invaders desecrated its home and drove the NRA south into Burma. The years since have been defined by their difficulty. In order to survive, the NRA had been forced to turn towards criminal activities, the very nature of which Song could feel standing a soul. Yet, still, they persisted, with hopes of returning to China and freeing future generations from subservience to the Japanese oppressors. It was this dream that propelled the NRA forward. The dishonor of these criminal deeds, was minuscule compared to the shame that they would face if they did not attempt to drive out the invaders by any means necessary. So, they continued their work diligently, using the resources they amassed to resist the Japanese in any way they could. However, an opportunity was presenting itself to the NRA, and Song Zhiliang was keen to take advantage of it. Song had gathered his cabinet together to address them on the stage of the NRA. I know that these years have been hard. The things we have done will blacken our souls for the rest of our lives. But we have only done what we must to combat those foreign invaders that even now occupy our homeland. I will remind you all that our position has been improving considerably in recent times. Every day we welcome more defectors into our ranks, valuable comrades who are too disgusted to continue working with the Japanese. Soon, I assure you, these winter years will end, and we'll see free China once again. It will all be worth it. Yeah, we can hope it. We can hope. Okay, I'm just looking forward. I think I recommend we do the "we're not enemies" route. Well, we have to wait a while for that anyway, but I wanted to take a quick little gander. Let's check out the warmongers. An unfortunate, ever-persistent aspect of the psyche of much of the Chinese military has been the notion of nationalism and revanchism against Japan and the East Asia Co-Prosperity Sphere. The insubordination has been spreading under the organization of the NPA and shows nearly no signs of stopping. But, bluntly, the belief has refused to die within our ranks. Our objective now is to kill it. This peace has been a thorn in our side as a peace-loving Luhan, and has only served as a terrible memory of the worst that China has to offer the Co-Prosperity Sphere. With some work, bullets, and sweat, however, we will find Yunnan to be more loyal to Co-Prosperity Sphere than ever before. There we go. Well, we'll get working on this after. Infrastructure might be good. The gate of friendship that met Guangxi from Vietnam was like a friend after all these years, a welcoming hand that guided him on the next stop in his journey, as it had done for so many others like him. It was an unmistakable feeling for Chen, a communist who had made this trek many times, going in between his infiltration cell in Yunnan and the remnants of the part in Vietnam. And he had some important figures to meet. It took places secluded in HoI as Chen met three expected figures. Two generals, Chinese like him, a pair of familiar faces who greeted him warmly. But the third he knew in a different manner. The taut and sinewy figure of the leader of the Viet Minh, Vietnam's own united front against the Japanese, who was known as the most enlightened one. Ho Chi Minh. After brief drink and exchangings of pleasantries, the General Yang Cheng-Wu turned to Chen as they all sat together. Tell me, what information do you have from Yunnan? Well, things have definitely changed. Long Yun has taken a lesser role in governance ever since the end of the war. He's had to share power with his cousin Liu Han, who's now the recognized leader as far as Japan is concerned. Their main problem is bandits, though. The countryside is awash with them, both resistance networks and petty bandits seeking profit. Liu Han is at least attempting to deal with them, though for now there's still a significant thorn in his side. An opportunity, perhaps. Ho spoke plainly yet intuitively, his experience practically radiating off of him in waves. They cannot control the countryside. There are untold amounts of people they cannot control. If they can be made to lose more control of their people, they will not truly be able to control their lands. It was a man full of wisdom, after all. It was no wonder he had forged such a prominent movement here in Vietnam. Chen had to interject, however. Perhaps, but something else to consider. From what I've been hearing, Liu Han is attempting to follow the model of the Nanjing government and trying to modernize the province, probably with Japan's help. Lots of new initiatives, new workers, and maybe weigh in. The other three men shared a look and smiled. He'd made a contribution to the cause, and that made Chen smile too. Under shelter friends, Mao's disciples plan. There we go. Let's focus on bandits. And in a bit, we'll work on reducing the power of the CCP. With the shouts of tax collectors still swelling around his blood-filled ills, Wei bent down to rest. He could picture in his mind's eyes, I think they forgot an A there. All he could picture in his mind's eyes was terror in the faces of those who warned him before his escape. He knew himself how ruthless they were. His debts had piled high, and the bailiffs would stop at nothing to seize what was owed. So he had to hold on to the last thing he could salvage, his own life. The breathless escape which had followed him left his limbs aching, seized by acid. By now, the sharpness of the pain could be felt all across his body. It was so excruciating that he laid down on a bed of rocks as if it were an imperial mattress. Slowly, the stillness of the air returned. It was something that he had not felt in far too long. Now that much of the anxiety of his debt had been cut loose, he could finally breathe. Somewhere along the road, the shadow of a man shimmered. He was not alone. More followed. Wei clutched the few belongings he had close to his chest. His legs were stiff, eyes watered over, lungs still gasping for air. It was already obvious how impossible it was for him to keep running. Eventually they reached him. Wei heard their whispers creeping closer and their attempted to beg them to let him live. But they were not interested. One pressed gently at one of his wounds, another lifted his head from the cool rocks, and he surrendered to them completely. There's always peace for the persecuted. So okay, yeah. Keep losing production units. We can't decide what production units we want to keep and what we don't want, can we? Well, let's improve our administration over the rural areas, and we now have more debt than we do GDP. I'm just gonna... Afternoon, Zhexiang and Enpu gestured towards a seat opposite his desk and placed a manila folder alongside a collection of paper, letter paper, ink, stamps, and pens. What's this, Enpu? Sitting down, Zhexiang reached towards the folder, now visibly marked as being top secret. Inside, Zhexiang found a collection of papers, all bearing the face of one general or another, as well as a short biography at a glance. And? What is this? The Jew looked at another for a moment or two. No, absolutely not. We can't afford this. And Enpu looked at Zhexiang with a smile on his face and dipped one of the 2 pens into the inkwell. You can't be serious. You know we can't do this. What if Lu Han finds out? On Enpu's pen nearly touched the paper before he placed it aside. I'm not spending another year of Japan holding us with such a close leash. And I know if anyone here doesn't want the head of Lu Han as much as me, it's you. Enpu took the second pen and dipped into the inkwell. Extending his hand to Zhexiang, pen in fist, they locked eyes again. Zhexiang was far from smiling. We're getting these people on our side. It's our ass if we don't. They'll join. They want nothing more. Well, let's do revanchism in Yunnan, excuse me. As thanks to our recent reunification with Yunnan, we have found ourselves in the company of a great many bureaucrats and generals who had prior adhered to the strict ideological regimentation. While this is obviously quite a blow to both our efforts of integration and our efforts of appeasing Japan, we may find a middle ground that can allow us to play the Japanese and these nationalistic elements off of each other. Assuming we can find a way to keep the most extreme elements of these forces at bay, we can both lessen the influence of the pro-Japanese forces as well as maintain some modicum of autonomy for Yunnan. It's a fine line in which Lu Han walks, between the nationalists and the Japanophiles. Should he play his cards right, however, he may walk away without even the thought of any opposition to his rule. Right. Oh, this pains me to look at. It's only getting worse, too. Oh, boy. Punta del Este, interesting. I'm trying to record a couple of these in bulk right now. I've recorded, this is the second one I've recorded today. I recorded 2 last night before I went to bed. I'm hoping to get 6 done so I can get them uploaded. I might have to tap out a next one, but we'll see. Anyway. Lu Han was not a foolish man. While others might react harshly or rashly in anger and rage, he'd learned from his many years in the battlefield the value of calming down and only then acting. It was skill that had served him well then, as it did so now, because of the all-consuming fury he felt at the moment, because he learned that Zhexiang and An Enpu had secretly been working for the NPA movement, nearly made him order the execution on the spot. But that would be the move of a fool, a tyrant, or a despot, none of which he was. After a few moments and a few deep breaths, the situation slowly resolved itself with greater clarity in his mind's eye. Zhang and An were both invaluable assets to Yunnan, the former in the army and the latter in civilian government. Unlike the other useless slums that populated the halls of power, they were both diligent and hard-working. Finally, their own personal influence was more than considerable, and there would be a significant number of men who would greatly resent any action taken against them. Keep your friends close, but your enemies closer. Wards whose wisdom had proved many times over in the pages of history and would now be proven again. Zhen and An could be valuable sources of information if they were lulled into a far sense of security and observed. The spy who had brought forward the information of the treachery was to be rewarded with a higher job, organizing this. As he sat back, all the details of the plan rapidly organized themselves. One by one, lower elements of the NPA conspiracy would be taken down for two highest rankings clueless. Then, when there was no one else but them, he would strike. After all, a bowl is most useful when it is empty. That's a nice little saying. I like that. Let's purge the military. When the raunchous and nationalist aspects of the Yunnan army have proven a strong counterbalance to Japanese influence, the most vocal elements are proving a clear threat to Liu Han's government. With each passing day that these radical officers and generals remain in the government, more and more upstanding individuals are being tricked into the notion of opposing the co-prosperity sphere. This obviously cannot stand. If we hope to maintain the stability of Yunnan, we need to put these officers down like the rabid dogs they are. While we cannot outright execute many of these individuals, as they are far too popular and influential even behind bars, they can be taken out of the picture for the foreseeable future. Should their efforts succeed, the NPA movement will be crippled, and Yunnan's military will be put back on the right path. There we go. How's our training coming along? Not well at all. I'll be real. Oh, fuck me. We're not building anything anymore. Okay, now we are. Okay, we're gonna be done in May of 63. Which is gonna be good, because we really fucking need that. The military. Next up, let's end reactionary thought. The only way we can put a proper and complete end to the NPA movement is if it is stopped in its tracks. Of everything which we will need to do to ensure the security of the Yunnan army, maintaining control over those within our ranks will be the absolute priority. Through bugging the offices of our high command, hiring tails for those who we remain suspicious of, and encouraging new recruits to report suspicious behavior of senior members, Yunnan will be made infinitely safer than when crawling with traitors. These actions will only strengthen Yunnan as a whole, no matter the measures which we are forced to implement. Even if those within the army grow angry, they will be reassured of the fact that this is all in the name of Yunnan's national security. Of course. It's all coming together. Oh, fuck off, really? What are we doing? What is happening? How do they decide this? I don't know. Okay, we're just gonna stick to free civilian factories. Get this pumped out by April. Or however fucking long it decides to take. Do some industry management. Try to get things pieced back together again. Might not be able to succeed, but we can at least try. And out with a crash. I'm curious to see how this will impact us out here. I don't know if it will. I imagine it would, but I don't know. Within the government of Yunnan, there is a growing sense of relief and desperation. Everything which has been done is to put an end to the insurgency across Yunnan is coming to a head. They need to, after all, as we are running out of alternatives. It seems as though the last tricks up our sleeves have been exhausted. The knives we have used against the terrorists has dulled, and the resolves of the police and anti-terrorist forces have finally become depleted. At this point, we have no alternative but to have put an end to the majority of insurgencies, otherwise we are in serious trouble. All we can do now is close our eyes and hope. Hope that enough has been done. Hope that the armies have done enough. Hope that Yunnan will survive. As much as we can hope for, it will become clear with time. All we know is that we have done our best, whether or not it was enough. When you try your best, but you can't succeed. The nice bit is our administrative efficiency is coming along quite well. Quite happy at that. It was, of course, inevitable. The world that Japan built so industriously over the past few decades had been raised on the most unstable foundation of all, the blood and bones of millions of their enemies. When the news of the Yasuda crisis hit Yunnan, one man knew what it truly meant and smiled. That did not mean everything was solved, however. Long Yun also knew perfectly well that he was in no position to do anything at all. With no men and no movement, Japan's weakness could offer a million opportunities without a single one of them ending up useful. Sitting at his desk alone in the late evening, he considered slowly and carefully all his options. Even after 20 years of kowtowing and licking the Japanese boots, the organized republic still lacked their trust. They were all traitors, both to their comrades and their countries. They thought the Japanese were the ones who installed them in power. He knew well the dangers of trusting a band of turncoats. The organized republic was allowed some 50,000 men for its own self-preservation, and that was it. Yunnan's army on its own numbered nearly enough to trounce them if it was used properly. Liu Han could, at this moment, cement his name in Chinese history as a champion of the people, if only... It was pointless to dwell on ifs and what-ifs. If only and what-ifs. It was possible that his cousin would wake up to his sense of duty, his sense of remembrance duty, his honor as a Yi. It was also possible, and unfortunately probable, that he remained blinded by the idea of surging the Nanjing government, and more drastic actions would have to be taken. One thing was sure, however. Japan's new world order was collapsing around its feet, and sooner or later someone would have to take up the opportunity. One way or another. Civil Rights Act. Well, there goes the Philippine conflict. And there goes the Caribbean incident. Okay. We're just gonna finish this factory. And hopefully from there, that's gonna give us a nice and stable base to work from. And then probably the best bet from here is a little bit of infrastructure. We'll do one there and one there. Liu Han sat at his desk and had been spending the day filing reports, hearing from all aides, and drinking heavily. By the time that Chen had finally come to speak of Liu Han again, the night had begun to dawn. And Liu Han began to lose lucidity. Not enough, however, to not want to listen to Chen's latest report. Tell me, Chen, what's happening? Liu Han sat in his office, slumping against the armchair, squinting at Chen and his armful of papers. Sir, your approach to insurgents has been definitive, for lack of a better term. While suppression seemed to have been the route taken, initial operations were mildly successful. The insurgents' operations have been considerably diminished and seem to be coming to a close. Unfortunately, the ranks of these insurgents have been refilled with the ranks of the poor. The slummers, the farmers, criminals, you know. Liu Han sat still, processing what he was told. While crimes and terrorism have undergone a marked decrease, our resources have been put under considerable strain. We can only hope that the situation stabilizes. Stabilize? Liu Han squinted his eyes and maintained his uneven stare and leaned forward. What do you mean, stabilize? Sir, Yunnan has been fighting against insurgents nonstop for the last months. It's become difficult beyond measures to maintain a proper state apparatus, and we are suffering for it. Liu Han looked at Chen with an upset, almost neutral look to his face. We're not doing everything we can, Chen? Chen frowned and let out a sigh. That's just it, sir. We are. We lack the power to land a decisive blow against insurgencies despite our hard work. Well, that's a bummer of a note to leave off on, but I don't know what else we can do. I'm going to leave things there for now, my friends. Thank you to those for watching, though. Like to see your like, dislike or didn't. Leave any comments, feedback down in the comment section below. I read all the comments I get, and I do appreciate any feedback you might have for me. Hit the sub button notification bells, as always. Keep updating these uploads as they come out. And I will see you all next time. Thanks for watching, and bye-bye.